Hello everyone, Calocucci here with another Hellfire guide. Yes, another one. I did make one before, but honestly, I made it too early and I have a better build now. I'm pretty confident with it, so let's get into it. Firstly, let's talk about her kit real quick. Her skill is this AoE dot circle thing that does pyro damage every 2 seconds. And in this state, if Hellfire takes damage during it, it extends the state duration and deals puncture retribution pyro damage to nearby enemies once every 2 seconds. And what that is, it's a mini explosion, just a mini explosion, some extra damage, right? For her ult, it does pyro damage to surrounding enemies and taunts them. This will force the enemy's aggro straight onto you. I do feel like it's a little bit buggy in co-op, but that could just be me. Other than that, it works pretty nice. As for her passive, it increases her max HP and continuously restores HP. So pretty simple kit overall, but the main takeaway about it all is that the damage of all the abilities scale off of her HP. So that's actually really important to her build. Coming back to her attribute page, you will see all the highlighted stats that she likes the most. HP, of course, skill damage, skill range, skill duration, and skill efficiency. For me, I have about 7.2k HP currently, 178% skill damage and 190% skill range, but skill duration and skill efficiency are just at 100%. We're basically going to avoid those two stats altogether because duration is actually a pretty weak buff, to be honest, that doesn't feel super valuable to actually target. And skill efficiency, she doesn't really have any demon wedges that help that and have really good value at the same time. So we're focusing on skill damage, skill range, and HP for the most part. Let's get into it. So currently, I'm rocking 3 Nirvana Spectrums, okay? And that's because they buff the skill range and her HP. More area of effect, more HP, more damage. And the reason we have 3 of them is because the effect says once upgraded to 5, you can actually equip more than one. Absolutely huge. And then we're rocking a Nirvana for a straight HP buff. And then we're rocking Prime Morale. This gives attack, HP, defense. HP is the main thing we want here. Attack doesn't help because, again, she doesn't scale off of attack. She scales off of HP. But defense is decently nice because that means she doesn't take as much damage. And we have 18% morale. Now, you might not know what morale does, so let's go over here. If we click on attribute info, it says the higher the HP percentage, the higher the damage dealt. That's what morale does. So for a character that scales off of HP, she's always going to have a high HP percentage, especially when her passive is continuously healing her. And with her area of effect, her dot killing enemies, there's a good chance that she doesn't take damage at all. That's why we're rocking Prime Morale. We're rocking Devouring Wildfire because of the 30% skill damage. She doesn't have any other demon wedges that gives a good skill damage buff as well as like HP or something. So this is the best we can get. Of course, the effect of it isn't going to matter for her because of the attack buffs, but that skill damage is what we really want. Now, we are also rocking a blue piece here called Violation. That's Volition or something. This is going to give us 24% skill damage as well. Now, you will notice I actually don't have the last slot unlocked yet, but you could just use a Nirvana Spectrum if you do have it unlocked. You might be thinking about using something like a Griffin Inferno, Midnight Sun, or Wildfire because it gives skill damage plus skill range. I tested it. The 18% skill damage compared to a Nirvana Spectrum buff is actually very small. The damage difference between those two is very small, but you're gonna get more benefits from using a Nirvana Spectrum because it has way more skill range. So I'd recommend just using that. As for the serpent piece, it doesn't really matter what you use here, to be honest. But yeah, that's pretty much all we got going on here. Of course, any higher tier of any of these demon wedges are going to be better. So yeah, that's what we have. Pretty simple. We like HP, we like skill range, we like skill damage. Moving on to her weapons. Now this is going to be the interesting part because her weapons do say she has proficiency in greatsword and grenade launcher. What using corresponding weapons actually does is it gives a little bit attack. It's not by much. So instead, we're using other weapons like a whip sword. It's because the weapon skills from these other weapons are way more valuable than the small attack boost from using corresponding weapons. That, and since Hellfire scales off the HP, it doesn't really matter. So the best in slot will actually be Undying Honoris. It's a whip sword that you could get from the covert commissions, and what this does, it increases her max HP by 50%, and the effect says when this weapon triggers a bonus effect on hit, it grants 8.6% max HP for 15 seconds, up to 10 more stacks. So that's like 80% more HP on top of the 50% here. Since Hellfire wants HP, that's actually huge. Now, why this weapon over her signature boss fight weapon? Well, it's because this weapon, although it gives 50% HP as well, the effect where it gives more skill duration isn't gonna be that valuable. I think giving it more damage with more HP scaling from this weapon here is going to be better overall. Plus, the upside to this even more, you don't have to use weekly attempts to get this sword. Plus, it's going to be way harder to smelt it. It's going to take way longer than it should be. So don't waste your time like I did. Don't waste your weekly attempts like I did. Just farm up a different weapon instead, like the whip sword here. For the next option is this scythe. I do believe this is given for free, but if you somehow don't have it, you can also get this from the covert commissions shop. This gives 24% skill damage. Absolutely huge. Skill damage, it's always great to have. Now this, in between this, you might wonder what's the damage difference. With all the HP buffs going on from this weapon effect, it's actually going to be a small difference, but it is stronger compared to the scythe. But the scythe is still very good if you want to use it. As for demon wedges on the weapon, just go for like purely damage stuff. If you're using the whip sword, I will recommend using a trammel to give trigger probability, so you can trigger the effect more often. All you got to do is whack some enemies with the sword and you will gain that HP buff no problem. As for everything else, crit chance, crit damage, attack, and spike attack, because this weapon uses spike attack. Very simple stuff like that. I would avoid things like plunging attack, charged attack, slide, stuff like that. But if you're using the whip sword specifically, make sure to have at least a trigger probability demon wedge on there. That's essentially it. I'm still working on my weapons because I actually got these recently, but that's essentially all you want. Now, as for her ranged weapons, we're using the dual pistols Excruce Duo. This weapon gives skill damage similar to the scythe. That's huge. That's huge. That's pretty much her best option. It really is. Though I'd argue if you really wanted to, you could use one of these bows that gives skill range. I'd argue that's an okay option. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world if you do. That, or you could use a grenade launcher like this one here called Destructo. It gives skill range as well. Those are pretty much the options, but in my opinion, these dual pistols right here are going to be the best for purely damage. For demon wedges, same thing as the melee weapons. Just put in some crit chance, crit damage, attack, stuff like that, and you're good to go. And that's essentially how you want to build her. For her best teammates, because teammates are going to be important for non-co-op activities, such as the in-game like immersive theater. What are her best teammates? Well, one of her best teammates is actually Margin because of her passive. Her passive states when the user or allies pick up loot, the user gains 1 stack of jackpot, lasting for the rest of the battle. Each stack increases skill damage up to 20 stacks. That's huge. And the fact that it lasts for the rest of the battle, absolutely huge. And depending on the level, that's more skill damage, right? I have it at level 6, and that's giving me 4.4% skill damage per stack. So up to 20, I do believe that's like what, 88% more skill damage? Actually huge. Another teammate you could use is actually Daphne. Though, if you have Daphne at Intron level 1, and that's because if you have her at level 1 here, it'll give 10% more damage. Just a straight up raw damage boost. And that activates when you have Emerald Fusion active, and you get that whenever she uses her skill. So if you have her at Intron level 1, you could use Daphne. Another option, you could use Tabitha if you have her, and that's because of her third node and her passive here where it says increases skill damage for self and allies when she's deployed as a combat partner. That's good. Now lastly, for Geniemons, anything that has HP and its skills like this miraculous Q-bolt here, its passive skill gives some HP. That's going to be massive, but its support skill actually can give an RNG buff like skill damage or skill duration. It is RNG, but if it happens, it happens, and it's amazing. But other than that, the main goal with Geniemons is their traits. I unfortunately have been slacking, so I don't have traits unlocked with my low level Geniemons. But when you do have your Geniemons built, the main trait that you guys should go for are these beefy traits which increase max HP. That's going to be huge. So yeah, that's essentially how you build Hellfire. Very simple character, not too hard. She's pretty good. I'd say she's not nearly as strong as a main DPS character like Lizbel, but maybe that's not a fair comparison because Lizbel is actually insane. But she is a good character that has her place in certain modes, especially farming modes, like where you want to use Rebecca or stuff like that, because the AoE dot from her skill is actually very nice. It kills a lot. It does a lot of damage when you have her built pretty decently. It can be very nice if you want to be lazy and don't want to do much. Other than that, Hellfire's just hot as hell. Let's be honest, she's a demon mommy. That's the main reason why we're all playing her, right? If you have any questions down below, please let me know. And honestly, if you're a Hellfire main and you have any other better ideas for a build or better suggestions, please let me know as well. I hope this video helps. Thank you all for coming and watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.